Hello, my name is Drakenshield, and welcome to my 7.1 guide for Legion. Now, there has been some changes to the Protection Paladin in the patch notes. Now, I'd say four notable changes are, first, the change to Retribution Aura. The only change to that is now Retribution Aura also affects you. So before it was all other players would take the damage. Now it's you and all other players end up, reflecting or dealing that extra damage. So that's a major, in my opinion, a major needed change because it made Retribution Aura completely useless if you're a good tank or if you're not tanking a whole ton of adds. Now, the other three are ones that only affect protection, and this is a Protection Paladin guide, so we're not going to focus on the holier Retribution changes. First is to First Avenger. I can't remember exactly what it did pre-patch. I don't think it had the Grand Crusader buff, but it does now. So it now does 50% additional damage to first target. Oh, never mind. I think it did change it. It still hits multiple targets, but now it deals the additional 50% to the first one and has the additional 10% chance to occur. So what it did before was it would change your your Avenger's Shield to only hit the first target. Or only hit one target and do increased damage to that target. So that's a change to it. So now it is still effectively an AoE, because the original one really hurt due to one of your artifact or two of your artifact major talents. One being the one that gives you a damage shield when Avenger's Shield hits a target, and the second being the AoE damage when it hits a target. So I'm glad they made that change. Bastion of Light, massive change in my opinion, reduced the cooldown to 2 minutes. It really needed it. Bastion of Light was kind of one of those things that you can only use once in a raid or in a boss fight. Not a raid, but just in a boss fight. It made it way too situational. Now, Bastion of Light, you actually have the opportunity to potentially use it twice, especially if you use it right off the bat. And the last change was to Crusader's Judgment. I'm not 100% sure what it originally did. All I know is it wasn't very good. But now it gives you 2 charges, and whenever you grant Crusader, which obviously refreshes your Avenger's Shield, also now refreshes your Judgment. I'd say I do definitely appreciate all the changes. The only change I would have done is also Consecrate Ground and made it better, because it's still a completely worthless talent in all respects. I don't know anybody who uses it or will use it. It's just not good. Everything else is generally fine in situations that it's good for. So, now, what I'm going to cover is not only the current Emerald Nightmare content, but also Mythic and Mythic Plus, and just generally out in the world soloing. I have not yet done Karazhan. I'm probably going to be doing it this weekend. So I may make an addendum guide just specifically for Karazhan at a later date. But this was mostly just what's good, why use it, and all that stuff. So, quick little background. I actively run Theorycraft simulations. I use Simulation Craft and the Ask Mr. Robot app to do all my simulations, and obviously use my own personal experience and brain as well. I've lost faith in all current prop Paladin Theorycrafters out there. Icy Veins used to be my go-to. I don't go there anymore. Whoever they have theory crafting has redacted his opinion and his build so often that it's horrible. Even he doesn't use his own builds that he recommends at all, as he knows that they're not very good. As for how to build your stats, for the most part, it's still a versatility haste game, or versatility mastery. Versatility is still king for tanks because we don't have any permanent mitigation. So you do need versatility to kind of bolster up that in-between tanking. Haste and mastery is almost equal. It kind of goes back and forth depending on what you have gear-wise, due to the nature of there is a point in which you can have too much haste for your rotation and then mastery starts taking over. So it's kind of finding a balance. For the most part, you can generally count on Ask Mr. Robot's gearing strategy simulation. If you are somebody who is competent at theory crafting, it's definitely easier to do it yourself, and you already know how to do it. But Ask Mr. Robots isn't terrible. It's definitely adequate, but no matter what people say, there is no permanent setup for what you should be taking for stats. It is really dependent on your gear. I'm currently 625 right now. Or sorry, 863 right now. I get these numbers messed up so bad. With a 868 potential. So I've got some respectable gear going on. Gives me a lot more diversity. I also have a guild bank that is 100% filled with 835 plus, 835 plus gear, so I can transition my gear on a whim based on any changes that may occur. So let's get into what talents I take and why I take them, because that's important. So I'll first cover just going out in the world doing world quests and solo stuff. Actually, first off, I'll actually go through the different talents and then go through why. So in tier 1, Consecrated Hammer, in my opinion, if you've checked out my other guide, is still pretty much useless. I have not found a situation in which I actually feel like I need Consecrated Hammer. Though, to be fair, actually, I may start using it on Ursoc on Heroic Plus. Well, Heroic and Mythic. Holy Shield has little effect on Ursoc, and Blessed Hammer has little effect on Ursoc. So, I actually may start switching to Consecrated Hammer, as Ursoc is definitely a high movement fight. And I do find myself standing outside of my consecrated ground on a regular basis. So that may be something I might transition to. So that might be one good thing about Consecrated Hammer. No other fights anywhere, in my opinion, would actually benefit from Consecrated Hammer. Not even out in the world. Now, question of Holy Shield versus Blessed Hammer. I've run multiple simulations, and at no point in time has Blessed Hammer ever been better than Holy Shield. Blessed Hammer only affects auto attacks, so just auto attacks, and 15%. Now, you could have an excuse to run this if you're going out in the world and doing questing, but in Mythics, Mythic Plus, and Rating so far, Blessed Hammer is a minimal defensive increase. Holy Shield, on the other hand, not only increases your block by 10%, and your block is already really huge, so 10% more will expand upon that chance. So that means your Holy Shield will actually typically mitigate 40% of damage. Even if you're not proccing 100% of the time, you're still getting more than a 15% benefit from it. Period. There's no theory craft at all, even multi-target theory crafting, that has ever shown Blessed Hammer is better in any sims I've ever done. The ability to block spells as well, especially in fights that you run dots. Cenarius is a good one, but there's lots of examples of it. Holy Shield, in my opinion, just destroys Blessed Hammer in every single simulation. So besides Ursoc, because Holy Shield has almost no effect on Ursoc after checking logs, Holy Shield, be it soloing or doing group content, is definitely by far, from my experience and from what I've simmed and everything, just absolutely is way better than Blessed Hammer. Even though everybody else, theory crafting wise, recommends Blessed Hammer for some reason, I still haven't figured out why. The simulations don't agree, but so be it. I've found my personal survivability, even checking my logs after the words, is always better with Holy Shield than Blessed Hammer. Next, you have your next tier. Now, if you're doing group content, Bastion of Light is your only choice. It is such a massive increase in survivability. It is, out of all three of these, the only increase in survivability. Now, if you're doing content that you do not ever find yourself needing Shield of the Righteous on a regular basis, and you find the normal cooldown, you could have an excuse to go for a DPS option, but for the most part, yeah, there's no reason to not go Bastion of Light. Now, for solo content, I've been dabbling in Crusader Judgment, but after rereading First Avenger, I'm actually thinking I might switch to that. Now, both are going to be good. The 2 charges of Judgment is kind of irrelevant, especially if you're doing a lot of chain pulling. But whenever Grand Crusaders procs, it refreshes both your Avenger's Shield and your Judgment. That will increase your damage. And it will also refresh Shield of the Righteous faster, which will also increase your damage, especially if you do something that I do, which I'll get to later, in regards to solo content. I'd have to say First Avenger and Crusader's Judgment at this point in time is kind of whatever your preference is if you're doing solo content or trying to get a DPS increase. And actually, in all honesty, if you are trying to get a DPS increase in dungeons or raiding, Crusader's Judgment is a better option because more judgments happening means your Shield of the Righteous does refresh faster, which will help compensate for the lack of Bastion of Light. But out in the world, just doing world quests and stuff, really dealer's choice, whatever you prefer. And your 45 tier talents, now, Fist of Justice is a PvP choice. That is your only PvP choice. Don't bother taking Fist of Justice for anything but PvP. So, your choice really boils down to Blinding Light or Repentance. Now, what your decision is going to be based upon is what CC do you have available in your group. If you find that you don't have a whole lot of single target CCs like Hex from Shaman, Sheep from Mage, you don't have a Rogue with Sap, just things like that, you're going to want to take Repentance. Otherwise, take Blinding Light, especially if you do Court of Stars. Blinding Light is a savior when you're fighting those imps, because you just jump in the middle of them, you grab them all, and when things start getting crazy, you Blinding Light, it basically stuns them all for 6 seconds, or disorients for 6 seconds, and that's 6 seconds your healers have to catch up. So by far, Blinding Light is the best choice for Court of Stars, but Repentance is something you're going to want to take on a case-by-case basis based on the CCs you have available. Now, the tier 60 talents are probably one of the most dynamic, in my opinion. Actually, the 60 and 75 are probably the most dynamic. Blessing of Spell Warding is my go-to for group content. Now, there are some exceptions when Blessing of Spell Warding is absolutely not necessary. Ursoc is a prime example where Blessing of Spell Warding is 100% useless. Ursoc does no real magic damage to you at all. Even on Heroic and Mythic, the only real magic damage is the AoE that you just step out of. So, definitely switch out of Blessing of Spell Warding. Cavalier is my world quest choice because it gives me more movement, especially when I'm going to do the PvP tower stuff, because I also take Steed of Glory, which increases it to 7 seconds rather than 3. But Cavalier, just for that extra movement speed, it just makes world quest faster. I've not found a single boss yet that I've felt the need to take Cavalier. The closest may be Eldareth in Emerald Nightmare, but really I find my base recharge to be more than enough that I don't actually feel the need. Now, Retribution Aura, basically, if you're not taking Blessing of Spell Warding, take Retribution Aura. Ursoc, for example, just the fact that the other 2 choices don't do anything, at least Retribution Aura will add a little bit of extra damage. Now, with the changes, you could even take Retribution Aura for going out in the world if you don't actually care about having Cavalier. So that's the other option. If you're doing Mythic Plus, take Blessed Spell Warding. There is no dungeon that has only one damage type, and I find Blessed Protection to be far less useful than Blessed Spell Warding. With that said, if you are doing just standard mythics, you're probably not changing your talents anyways. If you are changing your talents on a boss-to-boss basis, 1, that's expensive, and you should probably stop, unless you have so much gold you don't care. 2nd, the only really thing I can think of top of my head is Fenrir in Halls of Valor, in which Retribution Aura would probably be better, just because he doesn't do any magical damage. But for the most part, I'd stick with Blessed Spell Warding unless you're doing solo content. Now, 75 is also one that has a lot of transition. Now, some of this is going to be dependent on not only your group, but also your own personal comfort. So, when I'm out in the world, I use Knight Templar. Just again, it gives you more movement speed out in the world. The damage reduction is a moot point to me. It's just the refresh. In dungeons, Final Stand is my go-to. It's just way too good. Final Stand is amazing. Few exceptions though. For myself and even 5-mans. 5-mans, I only go Final Stand. Having the ability to go invincible and tank a boss, especially if everybody dies, which typically happens on the last boss in Blackrock because nobody knows how to dodge. You're going to want this to solo bosses. And I have soloed many mythic bosses. Not just because of Final Stand, but just because as a paladin, and if you have enough talents, you become fairly invincible. A few exceptions being, I find Final Stand to be a massive detriment on Dragons of Nightmare, and I find it completely useless on Il'gynoth. So in those cases, I take Hand of the Protector. Not because of the reduced cooldown, which it does have reduced cooldown compared to Light of the Protector, 13.2 for myself versus 8.8, so almost 5 seconds. But I actively heal my party. Now, why I don't take Final Stand for Dragons of Nightmare is because I find if I use it, sometimes I'll pull the other dragon, and that just messes up everything. So I typically avoid taking Final Stand for that. Now, Knight Templar would be a good alternate choice if you're not comfortable with Hand of the Protector. Just because you can move to the middle, taunt the other dragon, and quickly use Divine Steed to get back to the spot that you're supposed to be tanking at, all the while taking 20% less damage. Make sure you don't stop DPSing though. Now, Hand of the Protector is just great. I have it set up on my Voodoo, and I will actively heal on both Il'gynoth and Dragons of Nightmare. Just to help the healers out. Somebody gets to about 50% health, I pop Hand of the Protector on them. I don't take much damage on those two fights at all. It's actually, they're really easy tanking fights, in my opinion. So, I just add that extra added healing, and it really feels good. It feels like a really good choice for myself, but it does require a transition of thought. You have to be able to multitask. You have to be able to not only keep yourself alive using your own stuff, but you're watching health bars, you're watching debuffs to know when to do transitions. If it is overwhelming for you, go with Knights Templar on those fights if you're switching. It's just, it really is, the Hand Protector really can help your party on both those fights, because they are fairly healer intensive, especially if your group is constantly standing in bed. Rank 90, in my opinion, there's only one choice, Judgment of Light. Consecrated Ground is still garbage. That healing is so minimal, it doesn't even matter. It's a decent PvP choice due to the movement reduction, but it's garbage. Exception being Aegis of Light. If you are good and your group is good at positioning yourself for Aegis of Light, there may be a few bosses in which it could potentially be fine. You really shouldn't need it on Nethendra. People should be moving out. It's useless on Ursoc, unfortunately. It's pretty much useless on dragons. It's useless on Il'gynoth. It's useless on Cenarius. It's useless on Xavius. It's useless in all Emerald Nightmare bosses right now. Even Elmrath. Again, unless... Yeah, if people... That's the problem. Aegis of Light just has no bosses in which it really feels good. It can be used to help your off-tank, and that's fine, but... Yeah, Judgment of Light is your only option. If you have a Holy Paladin in your group who's like, oh, I'm going to take Judgment of Light, you tell them to take something else. Judgment of Light should be the Protection Paladin option. Now, for your level 100 talent, you kind of do have two choices. You have Righteous Protector and Last Defender. Last Defender is possibly a better choice for fights like Il'gynoth, for example. Due to the number of adds, there could be an argument for Elmrath just because of the spiderlings that pop out, but that's such a short interval. I don't really know if it's really worth it. I'd struggle of saying Cenarius against Xavius because the adds just aren't such a. There's not enough for Cenarius to really warrant, in my opinion. So really, the only one is Il'gynoth. One is going to be a massive damage increase with all the oozes running around. And with how light and tanky it is, except for a couple mobs, you could argue in Last Defender. Righteous Protector is just so good. Having your Light of the Protector refresh faster is huge. Having more burst damage on occasion also really good. Even Mythic and Mythic Plus, I've been trying to dabble in Last Defender. If you have a really good healer and you're doing Mythic Plus and stuff, you could try Last Defender on certain runs that especially if, which one is that? I want to say Teaming is involved. If Teaming is around, then as a Mythic Plus thing, then yeah, I can see Last Defender being a little bit better if you have a good healer. I still prefer Righteous Protector. Seraphim is never an option for group content, ever. In my opinion, even if you're running as a DPS, essentially, because of how things are easy, I'd still personally run with Righteous Protector for the burst damage in better moments. Seraphim is really good solo choice for World Quest because it will increase your damage because you don't need defensive stuff. So that's pretty much it for talents. For the most part, what you see here is my standard build for running dungeons and stuff. I don't think I can switch up. I can, good. So this is pretty much my raiding build and my mythic build. When I'm solo out in the world, I'm probably going to switch things to be more like this. That's probably what I'm going to run for solo content. Just because it's better. Blinding Light's still good as a mass disorient. So I really like having it as an option, especially if I pull a whole ton of stuff. Not for the added disorient, it's actually more so just because I can pop and do the extra 100k damage. I may consider switching to maybe Blessed Hammer, just because Blessed Hammer does give you more damage than Holy Shield will, but I still kind of prefer Holy Shield. So this is what I would personally use for solo content. Now, you can switch it up to maybe go that and switch out to Retribution Aura. Just for killing things a little bit quicker. I don't know if the damage is worth it. I personally like having the extra movement speed. As for Ursoc, maybe. Ursoc, I would probably switch things out to be a little bit more like that. Ursoc's kind of a special case, just because of him doing no spell damage. Now again, for dragons and Il'gynoth, I usually run more like that. I might switch out to Il'gynoth and run Last Defender though. I'm not 100% sure at this point. But again, this is my, get it all where it should be. This is my typical raiding build. I don't really deviate from this a whole lot. Again, I run typically Versatility Mastery. I'll actually show you my current stats. So I am currently running 1500 crit. Crit is garbage. It's your throwaway stat. Don't bother with it. 4400 haste. I would prefer more, but currently my build is saying that I should go with more mastery. I don't know. I'm kind of undecided. It really does boost Shield of the Righteous, and using Bastion of Light, it does make it better. And then 3600 versatility. I think the versatility being so low is mostly about the fact that in Emerald Nightmare and stuff, you really do have a lot of trouble finding versatility gears, all crit something, or haste mastery. Haste mastery is decent, but finding so much crit whatever is a horrible experience. Just a quick thing for trinkets. I am running Dark Moon deck Immortality, and currently a Impantral Nerubian Husk. I do want to switch to Xavius's statuette. I can't remember what it's called. It's like Grimacing Statuette. Just because it I think has more survivability, and right now I'm just stacking Loss of Armor. Currently for my artifact power, I am 28. I'm going to finish Sky of the Shadows next, and then I think the only thing I have left is these two. Forbearant Faithful is going to be my last one I take, so I'm going to cap out Stirring Judgment before then. I definitely need better relics, but with relics you take whatever's the higher in regards to eye level, just because eye level affects everything about your weapon. So I think that is pretty much it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put those in the comment section. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you like this content, want to see more, please subscribe. I am going to be making more content in regards to WoW as I come up with ideas. If you do have any ideas, again, feel free to post in the comments down below. I'm also going to be looking into taking an editing course so I can make my videos a little bit more presentable rather than just you staring at my Paladin. So, thank you very much for watching and have yourself a wonderful day.